Hello, hiya Emma. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me to your show.
Oh, me and Steve are delighted to be chatting with you.
Yeah, really are. And especially since you're in sunny Spain, of
Yeah.
course, with the weather. We don't
Yeah.
need to ask how the weather is, do we? Because it's glorious.
Is that, well, it's sort of surpassed glorious and gone more to sort of boiling temperatures, but yeah.
Well, how high is it?
It's about 28, 29 now in the
Yeah,
evenings, and it'll
the
probably
evening.
drop
Oof,
lowest to about 26.
low.
Yes,
Bloody hell.
par for the course, that. Par for the course. Yeah. It's been pretty warm here today. It's got to about 22, 23.
Yeah,
But it's been a nice day here as well, hasn't it, really?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Because you guys had scorching temperatures, didn't you?
Oh, we did. Oh, we are. Yeah, we had some in the 30s and that. Yeah, it was really hot.
It
Yeah.
was 42,
Uh,
wasn't it, the other week? The highest ever in the UK.
Yeah, that was down south, down in London. Of course, we're up
Oh.
northwest, aren't we? So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm from down south, so they must have all just been just melting.
Yeah, there will be. Whereabouts in Spain are you, Emma?
I'm on the Costa del Sol, so Malaga region.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, so been coming to this area for 20 odd years now. And my parents bought a holiday house here about 21 years ago.
Yeah.
Just used to long let it, and then my dad retired, and we all decided to just move to Spain all together, the family.
Oh, brilliant. You
Ah,
working there?
that was
Sorry, Steve.
I just do my writing, my life coaching and counselling. So it's great because I get to work from home, and it was brilliant, obviously during lockdowns and stuff, because it didn't change for me. I do all my stuff online anyway, and my husband's the same. He does all sort of like website engineering and mobile app development, which is all over my head because I'm not tech savvy at all. So we've been really, really lucky actually, as far as sort of working and that side of the situation goes. But yeah, it's full on. Even though you're at home, it's still, it's kind of like when you're in work mode. It's like
Mm,
almost like no different to being in an office, really.
mm,
yeah. I was just going to ask about that. Yeah, but you've answered the question really. As you're living with your parents, your husband in Spain, and you've been there for some time, obviously. So we don't
Yeah,
need to go back there. But it's obviously quite a big property, then, is it? If you're all living in relative comfort.
yeah, yeah. It's quite a big house. We're really lucky, obviously, to have the space to all be here. And obviously, my husband and I have got 4 children. We had three when we flew to Spain, and it's one of those stories where my husband and I went through fertility issues and had to have like treatment and all that jazz, and then moved country and literally just fell pregnant, like no problems at all. So we've got four now.
nice one. Something in the water. Better water there. Well, it
Yeah.
must be better than the
Yeah.
UK water if you've been reading the Twitter feeds.
Yeah.
I must just before we go on, I must say your husband looked a bit harassed on your last video before. I think he fell down some stairs yesterday,
What?
and you were
Yeah.
talking to him there, and you were going, "Love you," and he was like, "Ah," he looked all harassed and run off. Or was he just camera
Yeah,
shy?
yeah, he doesn't. He just doesn't do cameras at all. He just, I don't know what it is. He's sort of like, oh my god, no, don't look at me. It's like I haven't done my hair and makeup. You can't look at me.
Oh,
Oh, it's quite funny. Terry hasn't seen that yet,
no,
but yeah,
look at that
he
later.
came scuttling in with your cup of tea, I think, didn't he, or
Yeah.
whatever? Put it down, and you were talking to him, and you just got off like you couldn't move quick enough.
It's
Uh,
like, oh, I hope I'm not in the shot or anything. I was like, it's fine, don't worry. It's like you didn't break my camera lens, so it's fine.
Oh. Emma, talking about cameras, our friend Tasha Brown, Lady Tasha, she sent me a message
Yeah,
saying that you had the television crew out making some kind of film about yourselves or your lifestyle. Can you tell us about that?
yeah. So it's a TV show that I'm not really fully acquainted with. I've sort of looked at bits and pieces since, and they just follow families and people who have moved from the UK to Spain. So yeah, they were just looking at our lifestyle, like how, we make things work. And one of the big things that we were able to reflect on is that you save so much more money
Mm,
on things like food shopping. So even though everywhere food's going up, so like in the local Spanish supermarket, what we would probably have spent like 200 and above pounds on in the UK for like the food shop, we got for like 80 euros. So you
wow.
really get, so, and that's everything, like, fruit and veg, your meat, the whole lot. um so you do save yourself quite a lot of money on just, well, the essentials really that you
heating
need
costs
to
as well.
survive.
I suppose must be a lot lower. The cost of heating.
It's more the electricity bill that goes up actually. They really have, they've done the thing of like the electricity is like way up, so it's sort of like we use the ceiling fans instead of the air conditioning, and then we kind of just use the air conditioning if it's really hot at night as we're going to bed for like maximum an hour and a half, just because we're everyone's really conscious of cost, and you know, with the blowtorch temperatures that have just hit Europe this year specifically, we're just like, you were just using the ceiling fans and just trying to keep cool as much as possible by just sitting still. It's like, if you just sit still and you don't move much, it's like, yeah, you can just about manage it.
Air conditioning is not cheap at the best of times, and especially now with electric price, you've got to be a bit selective about using it, haven't you?
Oh, 100%. It's just, you know, it's always in the back of your mind. And I remember my dad, when I was younger, going around the house turning all the lights on. Oh, you've left the lights on, and now I'm doing that. I'm like, Matt, turn the lights off. Like, don't
That's
leave
me.
the lights on. Like, these are pound signs leaving the house, literally flying out of the, you know, the plug sockets and stuff. Like, turn them off.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, just explain to us. I think, is this something to do with life coaching? Is it this NLP? Is that neuro linguistic or something?
Yeah. So when I had my third daughter, and I thought, you know, my journey of having children was complete, I kind of thought, what's next? And I have a background in personal training from like a million years ago now, like when I was really young and athletic and fit. And after I left the world of fitness, I then it was about a year to a year and a half, I met my husband, and we decided to get married, obviously, and then start a family. And it was all very quick. It was like, I left, the gym in, my God, going back some years now. So around, I think it was 2008, 2009. And then I went into a completely different area of work. I actually worked for Costa Coffee for a stint. So you're going from personal training to Costa Coffee, but actually, you know, the payment wasn't much different because you get minimum wage as a personal trainer or fitness instructor. So I keep reminding people, when you see personal trainers in the gym or fitness instructors, appreciate them because they're working their asses off for nothing. Like, really, like, you know, it's really difficult industry to function in. And so yeah, I left the world of fitness behind me, started working for Costa Coffee, and I started the training. And then my family and I suffered a massive house fire, thanks to the Hot Point tumble dryers that, you know, one of the ones that's got the dodgy thing in 2009. Fortunately, the structure of the house was fine. It was all interior damage, but unfortunately we lost our family dog during that time, which was really, really upsetting. I mean, it was awful because it was my mum and I, and we came home and we saw the fire, so we had to phone the fire brigade, and you can imagine it was just pandemonium and just all the trauma from that. And that was the day before I was due to start working, like proper working, because I just finished the training for Costa Coffee, and they were opening this like new Costa restaurant. And I'd phoned my supervisor and manager the day before, and they were like not expecting me to go to work. So once we were settled in our accommodation, like where we were going to stay after the fire, I went into work, and it wasn't a proper working day. They were just doing the setup, so you didn't have to be in uniform. And my supervisor looked at me and she was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And she was like, are you working? And I said, yeah, I just really need to keep my mind working. I said, because if I just go and veg at the hotel, I said, I'm just going to be thinking about our dog all the time, and you know, it's going to be too upset. I want to be busy. So I said to them about my uniform. I was like, my uniform that I was going to wear, like when I started working, I said, it's all being cremated basically. But they were brilliant. They like got my uniform sorted, so I didn't have to fork out for like, you know, work trousers and other bits and pieces. So that was really good. And I think I was there for about 6 months, and it was a really positive work environment. So I'm still friends with my manager actually, and she came to mine and Matt's wedding, so it was really lovely because I've got her in pictures and stuff, and we're still in touch now. And I think that's where the undertone of Pink Club, where Darla is working, as a waitress comes from, because it's kind of pulling from my experience of being in that environment and, you know, serving customers, and it's really full on and it's really busy. It's like fast turnover all the time. And I think that's where I kind of channeled that for her character.
Okay.
And yeah, then so oh god, fast forward. So that was like at the start when I met my husband, 2009, 2010. We had a really fast procession of, like, you know, like you date for like years and then you have that conversation, we will get married, won't get married. Matt and I did things a little bit quicker than that. We kind of met on the 1st of May 2010 and we were married on the 9th of October 2010. So it was like a real sort of like it was like one of those things you read about in a book and you think, oh, that never happened. And I just had train wreck after train wreck of like relationships before where they just kind of petered out. And, you know, I just thought to myself, right, I'm going to take a year out for myself. I'm going to be really selfish. I'm not going to think about relationships or anything, especially after the house fire. And then I met Matt, and I was just so fast. It was like we dated for 4 weeks, and then he asked me to marry him. And I did sort of think he was joking at the time. I was like, oh yeah, I thought he was joking the way he did. And then he actually wanted to go and actively look for like rings and stuff. And I was like, are you? I took him to one side. I was like, are you actually being serious here, or are you just pulling my leg? Because I said, I really am going to get really embarrassed if we go back in that jeweler's now. And I'm like, yes. By the way, as far as like, looking for rings, we're going, like, we were just kidding. So yeah, and then we went home and he did the whole thing in front of my parents, and I wish I'd filmed it or something because it was so romantic. And like he just got down on one knee in front of my parents, and it was just 5 minutes after we'd moved back home from the house fire, so it was just really lovely to sort of have that as well. And yeah, then we got engaged, and then we had the most easiest conversation about like what we wanted from life. It was just like our cards matched up. Like we both wanted to settle down, get married, have children, and we just really kind of just fell in love with each other from like day one, really. I looked at life coaching courses and signed on to an online life coaching course, which was amazing, and I'd never done online learning at that point, and it was brilliant. And then we moved to Spain and sold the house in the UK. And my writing was sort of something that I'd always been doing. So I'd actively really been trying to write a book since the birth of our first daughter, which was 2011. But I keep starting and stopping with storylines, and I'd start with something, it would run out, and I'd bin it, and I'd do it again. And for about 5.5 years, this went on. And then I just had enough. So I said to Matt, I was like, I'm going to jack it all in. It's been like 5 years now. I cannot get myself to an end with a story on anything. And I was like, it's really stressing me out and it's really upsetting me. And it's like, I know I have the capability to write a book. I just can't seem to get there. So I made peace with my decision, and I went to bed and went to sleep and woke up the next morning, wasn't thinking about books or writing or anything. And then halfway down the stairs to getting my first cup of coffee of the morning, it was just like, bang, Pink Club, like just hit me like literally out of nowhere. And I was like, oh my God. And this idea was just running like a film in my mind. And I was just like, oh my God, I need a notepad and a pen. And I'm running around the house like something to it's trying to find something to write on. And Matt sees me, he's like, what is up with you? And I was like, I just got this amazing idea for a story. It's like, but you just told me last night that you were just gonna put it down, and I was like, no, I really need to write this story.
It must have been just to build it in your mind, I think.
Yeah. And you know, the weird thing is, it's about a dancer, and I know nothing about dancing at all. Like I probably had 2 ballet lessons when I was about 6, and it just wasn't for me. So if someone said to me like, why the drive and enthusiasm to write about a dance, I was like, I couldn't actually tell you. It's like it just came to me in an idea.
Yeah. Is it, when I looked the first time, I thought there was just one book, but there's 2 that are available at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's part of a series. How many do you plan for the series?
I've got 4 planned for the main series, and then I've got some other series sort of the Pink Club universe that I've got coming like after I finish the first 4 books. So it's turned into quite a big project, but I think the readers will like that because it will give
continuity.
More depth and you know, it'll invite them into the world of like the other characters as well, with a different dynamic. But I've really enjoyed it because I had to do a ton of research because I knew nothing about dance. I had to learn about ballerinas and, you know, the effects on their feet and the grueling hours they put in, and, you know, the stresses and the long days and the strict diets, and, you know, the emotional roller coaster that can come with that as well. And then because Dana's character is so dynamic, she's not just ballet. You know, she does like street dance, she does pole dancing. I've had to dig in there and be like, okay, right, street dancing, let's type in street dancing, what kind of moves, you know, specifically are for street dancing moves, and like pole dancing. And so I'm actually learning as I'm writing.
That's quite odd, you know, Emma. Most people write what they know about, and you've just had the sort of the basic idea of this character in your head, and then to go away and do the research. We haven't heard another writer saying anything like that, I don't think.
It's unusual, isn't it? Very unusual, yeah.
It's just bizarre because I am not a dancer at all. I think my only thing with dancing is like everybody else, like, you know, when you in the days when you could go out, like clubbing and you know, all that jazz, and you know, those days are way behind me now. You know, that's full-time mummy. But you know, I can just see her and like her energy and everything, and it was a real roller coaster. It took me about 5.5 years to complete Pink Club, because obviously when you're writing your first book, unless you really know what you're doing, it's like being in the woods and being totally lost. Because I didn't realize you actually need like a village of people to help you put a book together. So, you know, I've now got, thankfully, a beta reader and proofreader, an editor, and my book cover designing lady, because I was thinking about going down the route of getting a publishing house to publish my book, and it was my editing lady that said, she was like, oh my god, Emma, don't do that. She said, they'll just, you know, it'll cost you a fortune. She said, self-publish it on Amazon. She said, I've published my books on Amazon. So I went away and I read her books, and I was really impressed with her style of writing, which is why I was keen to have her as my editor anyway. And she said, you know, I can format it for you. And she said, I will post it up there for you, so you don't have to do anything like that, and at no extra charge. And I was like, oh my God, like that would be amazing. Thank you. And she's actually done that for both books. So I feel so lucky to have someone like Melanie, my editing lady, with me. And before I had these women in my life, it was just me on my own. And it's so lonely being a writer, because you just feel like you have to be so tight-lipped, because you're like, I don't want to give my ideas away to anyone. And you know, my husband, he's all tech minded, so he doesn't want to sit there and hear me talk about dancing and, you know, all this kind of thing. And then I'd be like, oh, could you just listen to this bit of text on the read aloud? And he was like, no, you just finish the book and then you can tell me about it afterwards. And then I nearly got ripped off by a editor who wasn't really an editor, and she was kind of like jack of all trades, master of none. And I entrusted her with quite a lot of money and the manuscript, and I had to fight tooth and nail to get my money back, but I did. And she just crushed my confidence, and I was that close to throwing the towel in and being like, I quit, I can't, it's too stressful, I'm on my own doing this and I cannot do it anymore, I don't have trust in anyone anymore, so I'm just gonna throw in the towel. And then a friend of mine who's also an author, who writes a lot of military fiction, and he's really well known, and one of his books has been turned into a film actually, and I was struggling to find an editor or anybody to just really help me critique Pink Club, and I was like, you know, really still trying to get through this. So I didn't hear back from him straight away, because he's a really, really, really busy guy. And then I thought, why am I asking him if he knows anybody? I was like, they're going to cost mega bucks. Like, he deals in sort of like screenplays himself and like, you know, top dogs. I was like, they're going to cost an arm and a leg. Like, I was like, that was not a wise move. Like, you. So I started to use a platform like Fiverr. Just started to put adverts out and saying like, I'm looking for an editor, and it's a minefield. It really is.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people who are willing to take money from new writers. There's a whole cottage industry designed just for that. They'll pay them for formatting, for editing, for suggestion, for printing even. Now that you've got a couple of books out there on Amazon, if a traditional publisher approached you now, would you say yes, please?
Yeah,
oh, it depends what deal's on the table.
Yeah.
It does. I've had this thought process already, and I'm like, it really depends what kind of a deal is on the table, because I've wisened up a lot in this industry now. Like, I've learned a lot, and I'm not as green as I'm cabbage looking anymore. And, you know, just quickly going back to the guy about the military books and everything, it's weird because he put me in touch with a woman in the States who's brilliant, and it's thanks to her that Pink Club actually exists now, because she just helped to pick up my confidence. And it was a 2-hour conversation because she's in the States and we had to do it sort of like on the telephone. And she's really, really well known in the film industry and everything. So I was like super starstruck. And it was that case of like, okay, just put that to one side for a minute, because you really need to focus and be a sponge now and just absorb all this woman's knowledge and input. And the money she charged was, she gave me a discount because we're both friends with this author, the military bod. And it was almost to the penny the same amount that the other so-called editing woman had ripped me off with. And nobody knew about the amount. So I was like, I had it refunded, and I literally was then able to pay this woman who I could obviously trust, and rebuild Pink Club sort of from the ground up and make it sort of what it is today. And I just hit the ground running with it then. And once it was published, it was sort of like, I really hope people like this, because a lot of work has gone into it. So it's like, please like it, and say nice things about it.
So Melanie, it was your editor, has had a massive influence on these 2 books by the sounds of it. And you've made that very clear that the other 2 people involved as well. I think you even put a little thing on your Twitter account as well with the photos of the 3.
The Amazon page as well.
Much influence, Sorry, Terry, go on.
I was going to agree with that. It's on your Amazon page. I haven't seen that before. Someone actually naming the editor and, you know, the illustrator for the cover.
Yeah. Because I like to give kudos to them, because you know, they work just as hard, and I haven't just done it on my own. You know, I might have written it, and they get the raw format of it, especially Melanie. So she's got to refine it, and she does all the text and everything. So the text design on the chapters and how it's laid out and everything, that's all thanks to her. And you know, the book cover design is all Mary Louise, and my agent M, who wishes to remain anonymous. She's like my sounding board, so she's my beta reader proofreader, and like I will bounce around ideas with her, and if I go off at a tangent, she'll be like, oh, you know, like slow down, and she'll be like, just remember to keep it simple. And you know, if I write a section of the story, she'll say, that's all well and good, but don't forget earlier you said this. And I'm like, oh damn, I forgot I did that, so I have to go back and I have to reframe it. And couldn't do it without these women. I really couldn't. Like you really need to have some people with you that you can trust wholeheartedly and have your back on this process, because otherwise you really can't. I think you can just get chewed up and, you know, spat out, as it were. I was very lucky.
Yeah, definitely. Where are you up to with book 3 then? Is it on paper or done, or is it close to being released?
So I got up to chapter 32, so it's, I'd say, well into the halfway point already, because I mean, now that I've done book 1 and book 2, book 3 and 4, they're already skeletally planned, so they pretty much are writing themselves now. I'd say that first biggest hurdle is book 1, and I think that's relative to a lot of writers. It's like that first book, and then it just, you know, if you're writing a series, the characters are more well-rounded, and you know the characters better, and you can just sort of fit them into the roles that they need to be and what they need to be doing and everything.
Emma, can I ask about the cover that's behind me and the title, The Pink Club? Now, this is going to sound sexist, but have you deliberately sort of aimed this at women readers? I know they account for something like 80% of the total readers of fiction. Have you had sort of any positive comments from any male readers?
Actually, yes. It was a radio DJ did my first radio interview to do with Pink Club. He actually bought it and he read it and he really, really liked it. Brilliant. And I've actually had a couple of guys that have read it and given me some really positive feedback and stuff. But yeah, I think it's had more like women interested in things, but I mean, that wasn't really intentional because the title has always been Pink Club. It just literally, when the idea first hit me, it was Pink Club because the nightclub, as it were, kind of came to me, and then it was the name of the nightclub as well, and then all the characters started to form themselves, and I was a bit like, that's why I needed that notepad straight away. I was like, I need to write this down, I'm gonna forget the details.
Oh, that's a great title. It stands out, it really does.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And also, you know, there are some really diverse characters in Pink Club as well, so it kind of celebrates people from all walks of life. And actually, Darla is in the minority as far as masculine, feminine energy goes, of what goes on inside Pink Club. So I think people will be pleasantly surprised when they read it, or at least I hope they will, that it kind of tries to include everybody in the sense of the topics that might get expressed in the book, and that, you know, it really welcomes everybody, because it's a secret club.
Like Fight Club, is it like Fight Club? The first rule of Fight Club is don't tell anyone.
Yeah. So it's a high profile nightclub just specifically for like high profile celebrities and royalty, and it's really cloak and dagger. So it's like, you know, there is no media allowed to be leaked out of it anywhere. Everybody has to sign NDAs, so it, you know, it protects itself. And there are like some really intricate details inside the story as well, and a lot of people have reflected to me, like I can't really say anything because it'll be a spoiler, but there's something really, really unique about Pink Club that I wish I could really, really like just project how I see it in my mind, like out into the world, like visually, because it's huge, it's massive, and it's got a ton of character in there, and the community within Pink Club is all very nice, and it kind of runs like a well-oiled machine. But then you've got all like the drama and stuff between the characters that's popping off, especially for poor Darla.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, by the way, Terry, that DJ she's talking about wasn't me either. No. Just moving on a little bit then. What social media platform do you find works best for you? Because I must note that you haven't got a lot of followers on Twitter. So is that because you use a different format, or do you find something else better?
Because I'm really late to using Twitter and Instagram.
New account,
predominantly just Facebook. So I really only started using Twitter and Facebook a few months ago, and I'm sort of learning the ropes of like how
that'll build up as you get your book promoted as well.
Put myself out there on social media, and like how to just keep your presence on there, sort of like every day, even if it's just to post a story or something, that you keep it ticking over. So that's the other thing with being self-published. It's like all the marketing, it's like you have to do it yourself. And it's like me and Tasha have talked about this, and it's sort of like, you know, she's written a whole load of stories within her series. Loads. I love her stories. And she said, it's just the marketing. She said, I don't know how to like get the word out about them. So we kind of, Melanie and Tasha and myself and a couple of other of my author friends, we're always sort of giving each other shout outs and like share the links, and like slowly we sort of like boosting each other up.
That'll build like a snowball effect. I think when I started, I had 2 followers, I think, and then just start liking other writers and sending messages to other writers, and it just builds and builds.
Yeah, so I like reach out to other authors, and I'll say, you know, that I've noticed you've got a book you've just released, and do you want to do a book swap and review swap?
Yeah.
And that's really successful. But obviously I like that, because then the person that's writing the review, you've had that personal connection with them, and then you can keep that connection, so that when they release other books and then you release other books, you can keep doing that in tandem. It's a slow slog, but I think it's just one of those things where you just have to keep at it and keep going and keep going. So, you know, it's like with this really great interview with you guys, it's like as soon as Tasha put me in touch with Terry, and then you guys reached out to me, and I didn't respond in the message on Twitter for ages, because like, that's how little I use Twitter. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I didn't reply to the message. So it's like, I love doing like the interviews now, because I like to talk about Darla's story, and the underlying message is like to never give up, but also that it's not your financial situation or your living situation that determines the outcomes to your dreams. It's like, you can do it, you can. And you will probably get like a lot of doors slammed in your face, but there's always going to be a window that opens somewhere, which was my experience with Pink Club, you know, book 1. It was, you know, the case of like not having much money in the bank, and that struggle, and really trying to reach out and keep getting people like quoting me crazy prices. I think the most expensive quote I got for someone just to edit my manuscript was like £2,000, and they worked for like a high-end publishing company, and I was like, oh well, that makes sense. So when I met Melanie, I think I was posting on Facebook actually in groups saying like I'm looking for an editor, as well as Fiverr at that point. And she kind of made herself known and gave me examples of her work and said, you can give me just a deposit now, and then you don't pay the rest until like you get your manuscript back and it's finished and you're happy with it. And then the fact that she's already published books of her own, and I'd read them and I'd seen her style of writing, just built on that trust from there. So I mean, that was, I don't know what you call that, whether that's luck or what, because it's just so many.
Yeah, it can be full of potholes all the way through.
A final question. So what advice would you give to any aspiring writers then? What's the best way to start and go about writing a book?
It'd be good coming from you as well, with being so sort of new to this as well, and looking at the potholes that you've gone through.
Well, I'd say definitely connect with other writers online, join groups and forums, start to make connections early on from people who have published books, maybe in the style of genre that you're thinking of writing in. Just keep asking for advice and pointers, and maybe you've got like a budget and you're just saying that this is my budget, so is there anyone that you recommend, or you can point me in the direction of somebody. Just keep putting yourself out there, just keep asking, and yeah, just like don't give up, just never give up, just keep going. And there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, it was something my grandmother used to say to me, and it's a saying I've sort of retained like my whole life, and I have tried to weave that, I think, more in sort of like book 2 and 3 with Pink Club, and that is, people seldom remember what you said to them, but they always remember how you made them feel. So I always try and leave a positive impact with people, like wherever I go, and I've tried to inject that throughout the story with Darla's journey, because she comes from humble beginnings and she's really had to work her nose to the grindstone to even just survive with her mother. And then this amazing opportunity comes along, but she's just like so full of fear. She's like, I don't think I could do this, oh my god, what if I fail? Then it's going to be heartbreaking. And it's that kind of like, will she, won't she, what'll happen if she does, if she doesn't, and to just when opportunity presents itself and it's something that you really, really want, you've got to at least try, because there's no failure in trying. So I'd just say to anybody that's writing a book, like, just don't give up, just keep going. And there are other authors out there that will be willing to sit down and help you, point you into the direction, maybe some of the connections that they've got, which is why I specifically, in the back of book 2, I've got not just my profile, like about the author, but also Melanie and Mary Louise and my proofreader and beta reader, so then people have got a point of contact if they're looking for a specific service and things.
Building up a network. But listen, it's been an absolute delight chatting to you. Your enthusiasm shines through.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been really lovely. Superb. Thank you very much. It's been a lovely sort of get together. I hope we can do this again in the future. It'd be great.
Yeah, when book 3 and 4 are out, let's do it. Definitely. Yeah. But for now, Emma, thanks very much.
Thanks, Terry.
Yes, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Take care.